been living a lie for 30 years. The man you grew up believing to be your dad, or if his brother, admit to sleeping with the plaintiff's mother one time after a wild night of partying.
Did a DNA test himself after 30 years, and it came back that he wasn't my father. I never met him until I was about 7 years old at a court hearing for child support or something. She said, "Amanda, this is your father." It was very hard for me to let him in, so I was very hesitant about having him in my life. My mother said that when she was pregnant, he walked away, that he didn't want anything to do with me.
The person you thought...
My brother always believed that he was her father, until just recently, because he left the sample sitting around for a while. Story there, he told me he left it on his refrigerator.
And he told me he left it in the car for 2 weeks, and then when he mailed it for me, he mailed me two samples. One for my mother, one for me. Because he always had questionable doubts. You know, he said he's my father, but he just wanted proof. Well, I have a DNA kit here. I'm sending in my...
After the devastating moment when Judge Lauren Lake reveals that neither David nor Kenneth is Amanda's biological father, the courtroom enters a deep, quiet stillness. The emotional shock felt in the room becomes almost tangible. This moment represents one of the most painful realities in modern DNA investigations. Sometimes the pursuit of truth does not bring closure, at least not immediately. Instead, it opens another layer of uncertainty, a layer that can feel even heavier than the one before. Amanda tries to steady herself, but the heartbreak spills into her voice as she describes the unbearable feeling of being pushed back into the darkness she has tried so hard to escape. The courtroom atmosphere shifts from tense anticipation to collective grief. Judge Lauren Lake, recognizing the emotional gravity of the moment, steps into a role that blends the authority of law with the compassion often found in recovery programs and emotional healing circles. It resembles the solemn tone of Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where individuals confront the most painful truths of their lives while being surrounded by support. In describing what unfolds next, the court becomes a place where heartbreak is matched with resilience. Amanda, though devastated, expresses her determination to keep searching for the truth. She emphasizes that her purpose is not rooted in resentment, nor in the desire to replace the father she never had. Instead, it is driven by the need for clarity, a need tied deeply to health history, identity, and a desire to give her son answers she herself never had. Her voice trembles as she admits that she feels robbed of something precious, the fundamental right to know who you come from. The silence from her mother, the conflicting stories, the vague timelines, and the lack of accountability all swirl together like a storm that has followed her for decades. It is at this moment that the courtroom becomes more than a place of verdicts. It becomes a place where truth is acknowledged as a form of emotional justice, even when legal justice cannot provide a definitive answer. Just like cases explored on the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, the lines between law and morality blur. Judge Lauren Lake acknowledges this, reminding everyone that truth matters not just in documentation or legal processes, but in the healing of a family's emotional wounds. She gently reinforces the relationship between law and justice, explaining that while the court provides legal clarity, emotional closure is a journey that sometimes requires time, courage, and further investigation. The court revisits the earlier discussion about the mishandled at-home DNA test. The scientific explanation provided earlier underscored the risks of improperly collected evidence, a real-life echo of the Adverse Inference in Evidence Act, where compromised evidence cannot be trusted. Every detail about the sample being left in a car, sitting on a refrigerator, mailed late, returned for incorrect postage, reveals a chain of errors that casts doubt on initial assumptions. Judge Lake uses this moment to emphasize how crucial it is to rely on trustworthy, professionally administered DNA tests, especially when the consequences are as life-altering as determining someone's biological origin. Kenneth, the defendant, also finds himself struggling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, he has spent decades believing that he played no biological role in Amanda's life, and he enters the courtroom confident that he is not the father. On the other hand, as the evidence and timelines unfolded, the possibility, even the slight possibility, that he could be her father forced him to confront emotions he had never expected to face. And now, with the results confirming that he is not the father, he experiences a bittersweet relief. His compassion for Amanda is evident, but so is the confusion and sorrow of knowing that she must continue her search. The courtroom narrations make the case feel similar to episodes found in adoption stories, full episodes, where long searches for identity sometimes lead to partial answers instead of full resolutions. The truth can feel like both a gift and a burden, something Amanda expresses clearly as she wipes her tears and gathers her strength. Kenneth begins to explain that there might still be another man, someone he couldn't locate, someone from his brother's past, someone who had connections with Amanda's mother during the same timeline. This detail shifts the emotional focus once again, reminding everyone that the story is not over and the truth may still be out there. The courtroom listens closely as Kenneth expresses his intention to help Amanda find this man, a gesture that shows unexpected compassion considering the broken family dynamics that brought them into court. Judge Lauren Lake acknowledges Kenneth's willingness, praising the courage it takes to confront uncomfortable truths and help someone find closure. The judge's tone feels similar to a wise voice you might hear on the Divorce Course podcast, where family stories unravel in complex ways and legal guidance must be balanced with emotional understanding. Amanda then reveals how deeply these events have affected the most important moments in her life. Her wedding ceremony lacked the symbolic presence of a father figure. Her son's birth lacked the support of parents because of strained relationships and unresolved truths. Each milestone in her life, rather than being remembered for joy, has been overshadowed by questions about her identity. These details, although presented in a calm courtroom setting, carry the emotional power of Truth Changes Everything podcast stories, where the truth can be both liberating and painful. As the court analyzes each part of her story, it becomes clear that what Amanda seeks is not anger or revenge. She seeks knowledge. She seeks peace. She seeks a sense of belonging. Identity, after all, is one of the most fundamental human needs, and the courtroom discussion reflects how law, psychology, and truth intersect in real people's lives. Judge Lauren Lake, in her firm yet compassionate manner, reassures Amanda that everything she feels is valid. The judge repeats that the courtroom is here not just to deliver results, but to support her next steps. The narrative emphasizes the judge's role not only as a legal authority, but as a compassionate guide, someone who understands that cases involving DNA, heritage, and family secrets often carry more emotional weight than any financial or criminal case. The description of this moment mirrors a deeply human exploration often seen in DNA test cheating stories, where surprises, painful revelations, and broken trust collide. But this case is more than a cheating story. It is about a woman searching through decades of silence and conflicting narratives, trying to uncover the reality of her own origin. Judge Lake opens the courtroom discussion further by asking Amanda what she wants most from the future. Amanda, through tears, expresses her simple but profound desire. She wants to sleep at night without nightmares. She wants to know who she is. She wants her son to grow up with answers. She wants closure. The courtroom listens with heavy hearts as Amanda describes how her mother's secrecy affected every part of her life. She highlights how profoundly damaging it is when a parent hides the truth about a child's origin. Her voice carries the weight of every person who has ever struggled with hidden family histories. In response, Judge Lake speaks to her with the same empathy found in counseling-oriented shows or spiritual guidance episodes. The judge reminds her that the court's role does not end with the DNA results. If there is another man to be tested, the court will help facilitate that. If she needs emotional support, the court will provide resources. If she needs guidance, she will not be alone. The theme returns again to the relationship between law and justice. Law can give facts. Law can declare that someone is or is not the father. But justice, true justice, sometimes requires emotional repair, family reconciliation, and self-understanding. Judge Lake makes this distinction clear as she encourages Amanda to continue moving forward. The court then acknowledges the emotional importance of support systems. The truth, no matter how painful, often becomes easier to bear when surrounded by people who care. And in that moment, the courtroom feels like a community, a place where Amanda is no longer carrying her burden alone. As the session progresses, Amanda begins to regain composure. Although visibly brokenhearted, her resolve becomes stronger. She repeats that she will continue searching. She will keep fighting for answers. She will not let this setback discourage her. This part of the court proceedings becomes a reflection of the concept of justice in jurisprudence. Justice is not simply about a result, but about fairness, truth, and dignity. It is about giving people the clarity they deserve, even when the process is painful. The judge's words provide reassurance, grounding Amanda in the reality that knowing the truth, even when it hurts, is always better than living a comfortable lie. She explains that uncertainty is a heavier burden than truth, and Amanda deserves the relief that comes from knowledge. In the final stretch of this emotionally heavy case, the courtroom shifts into a space where reflection becomes just as important as revelation. Moments after learning that neither man, not the one she grew up believing was her father, nor the uncle who might have been, is biologically connected to her, Amanda must now confront the vast, uncharted territory of not knowing where to look next. The air carries a mixture of heartbreak, compassion, and determination, as the entire courtroom recognizes the humanity behind her journey. Judge Lauren Lake, maintaining her balance of authority and empathy, acknowledges that these results land like a physical blow. She validates Amanda's pain and emphasizes that the courtroom's purpose is not only to reveal the truth, but to support the emotional recovery that follows. The judge's words are reminiscent of stories often heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where the journey to healing is messy, painful, but still guided by hope. Kenneth's willingness to continue helping becomes a moment of unexpected unity. Despite not being her father, he expresses a sincere desire to assist Amanda in locating the third man, the one who was involved with her mother during the same period and whom he has struggled to find. His support reflects a deeper truth. Sometimes biological ties are not the only bonds that matter. In the face of uncertainty, compassion becomes a kind of justice. As the courtroom processes this revelation, Judge Lake revisits the broader themes at play: the fragility of identity, the power of truth, and the complex relationship between law and justice. She explains that legal processes do their best to reach concrete answers, but when family histories are clouded by secrecy, misinformation, or shame, even the courtroom cannot provide closure in one day. Truth takes time, courage, and persistence. Amanda's emotional vulnerability continues to surface as she describes the ripple effects of not knowing her heritage. She speaks about her son, the next generation, and how she fears passing forward the same uncertainty she carried for years. Her voice trembles when she imagines having to explain to him that she does not know her biological father. The weight of generational trauma becomes evident, showing that identity is not just personal, it shapes family narratives too. This point resonates deeply with the court audience. For many, Amanda's story mirrors the experiences shared in Adoption Story's full episodes, where individuals discover later in life that the truth about their origins was hidden, distorting their sense of belonging. Her struggle highlights how vital transparency is within families, especially when identity and medical history are at stake. Judge Lauren Lake then gently guides Amanda to recognize the strength she has displayed throughout this ordeal. The judge emphasizes that truth, even when painful, is never the enemy. Silence, secrecy, and avoidance are what cause long-term wounds. This echoes the philosophy often shared on the Truth Changes Everything podcast, where stories reveal that truth, though difficult, unlocks the path to healing. The court then analyzes the emotional and legal implications of the paternity acknowledgement signed decades ago by David. Although he claimed responsibility at the time, the absence of a DNA test left the door open for years of confusion. Judge Lake clarifies that legal documents can establish parental responsibility, but they cannot override biological truth. This distinction reflects the nuance found in discussions about the concept of justice in jurisprudence, where justice must serve both factual accuracy and human dignity. Amanda explains further how her mother's choices and decades of dishonesty inflicted invisible damage on her sense of self. She recounts memories of trying to piece together her history with fragments of information, never knowing which details were authentic. She describes feeling like an outsider within every family circle she entered, whether it was David's family or Kenneth, because she was never certain she truly belonged. The courtroom listens silently as Amanda's grief unfolds. Her story becomes a powerful reminder of how secrets in families can act like emotional fault lines, creating instability for generations. Judge Lake validates her feelings with compassion, acknowledging that Amanda was deprived of the stability, clarity, and affirmation she deserved as a child. Despite her pain, Amanda demonstrates resilience. She begins speaking about her next steps, the hope that she may eventually identify the third man involved with her mother. She mentions how she contacted him once, only to be dismissed, told he did not want the discomfort or consequences that would come from acknowledging the past. His reluctance becomes another barrier between Amanda and the truth, but she refuses to let his avoidance halt her search. Judge Lake addresses this directly, explaining that running from the truth may seem easier for some individuals, but it only prolongs the harm. The judge assures Amanda that the court is willing to assist if she can locate the man or persuade him to participate in testing. This reinforces the message that justice is not just procedural. It is supportive, protective, and deeply human. The courtroom setting, though focused on paternity, also brings forward bigger conversations about emotional accountability. Judge Lake discusses how difficult it is when parents fail to provide clear, honest information to their children. She highlights the importance of parental responsibility, especially when it comes to identity, ancestry, and medical history. The conversation touches on the broader societal issues often explored in DNA test cheating stories, where family secrets, especially those involving infidelity or overlapping relationships, create long-term emotional consequences. Amanda's emotional exhaustion begins to transform into cautious hope. Even though she does not have definitive answers yet, she now has clarity about where not to look. Two possibilities have been eliminated. One man remains. Her path has narrowed, not ended. The judge encourages her to view the results not as a closed door, but as progress. The truth, though incomplete, has become clearer. She now has a more accurate understanding of her family history, allowing her to move forward with intention instead of confusion. The courtroom then returns to the topic of the mishandled DNA test. Judge Lake underscores how unreliable tests and poorly managed samples can derail the search for truth, referencing earlier scientific commentary. This relates back to the legal principle of adverse inference in Evidence Act, where evidence that is mishandled cannot be interpreted with confidence. The judge explains that this is why professional testing in a controlled environment is essential when the stakes involve identity. As the discussion unfolds, Amanda begins to articulate her understanding of the journey ahead. She acknowledges that closure may not come quickly, but she feels more supported and more empowered than before. She expresses gratitude for the opportunity to confront the truth openly, something she never received from her family at home. Kenneth then reassures her again that he will help locate the third man if possible. He expresses regret that no one told her the truth sooner, admitting that the complexities of adult decisions often lead to children carrying consequences they never caused. This admission reflects the emotional accountability missing from her mother's decisions years ago. Judge Lake recognizes this moment for its significance. She praises the willingness of adults to step forward now, emphasizing how crucial it is that the next step in Amanda's search is handled with openness and honesty. The judge reiterates that the court remains available, ready to assist with further testing and guidance when the next individual is found. In closing, the courtroom becomes a place of unity rather than division. Judge Lauren Lake turns to Amanda and tells her that her pain is real, her search is valid, and her strength is remarkable. She encourages Amanda not to view the lack of answers as a failure, but as part of a journey toward truth that is still unfolding. Amanda nods through tears, absorbing the judge's words. She expresses her determination to continue searching and her gratitude for the court's compassion. She explains that she will not allow uncertainty to define her anymore. The judge's unwavering support becomes a turning point for her, a reminder that she is not alone, and that the legal system can serve as both a protector and a guide. The session ends with a sense of determined hope. The emotional impact is profound, but so is the human connection formed in that courtroom. Amanda walks away without the answer she hoped for, but with a clearer direction than she had when she entered. She carries forward the courage to continue her search, supported by the truth, empowered by her own resilience, and strengthened by the compassion shown to her. This final segment of the description reflects the core lesson of the case. Truth may be painful, incomplete, or delayed, but it remains the only path that leads toward true healing. Judge Lauren Lake reminds Amanda, and everyone listening, that justice is not only about verdicts. It is about restoring dignity, honoring truth, and ensuring that no one faces life-changing questions alone.